Hi and welcome all. We are so happy to be back after the summer. My name is Malin Hammarberg and I'm here as the moderator today. We feel very welcome by all of you that so many wanted to turn up to this webinar. It's an interesting topic and a wonderful speaker, but we hope this also means that you love our Friday webinars and you've been holding on all summer just waiting for them. So, the webinar is automatically subtitled. Use the CC button in Zoom. The webinar is recorded and will be published on our YouTube channel. If you don't already do it, make sure you subscribe and like our videos so we know what you want more of. Your microphone is muted to avoid background noise, and there will be a short presentation followed by a Q&A. Please use the Q&A function to pose questions to the speaker because this makes it easier to us to find them than if they are in the chat, because then they get mixed with a lot of other messages. So, without any further ado, I welcome Peter Kemeny, and I don't think I can click anywhere to share screen.
Hello. Yes. Thank you, Malin. And yeah, from my side as well, I'm very happy that you came end of August. I guess it has been a long summer without Friday webinars. A lot of people registered. This seems to be a huge success. And I hope that you'll get what you expect. I'm sure that you'll get what you expect. I'm Peter Kemeny. I'm a document accessibility specialist at Funka Foundation, and I will talk about standards and accessibility legislation and user needs. So first, let's start off how this is built up, how we get to accessibility, how standards play a role, what legislation does. Most of you probably know it, but it's a good thing to have this, to present this chain that basically to get to accessibility, first of all, or the lowest level or the technical level, you have technical specifications which are provided usually by standards. Standards are established, agreed rules that provide uniform criteria, technical criteria, or methods or processes in order to, in this case, to ensure or help to ensure accessibility, or for this specific presentation, accessible documents, even more accessible PDFs. Then there's legal requirements which usually are limited to certain areas, for example, in Europe, among others, but the main ones probably we have the European Accessibility Act that is for ensuring that certain products and services are accessible, including the websites and the documents they use. And we have the Web Accessibility Directive, which is for websites, mobile apps, and documents of European public sector bodies. These laws set accessibility requirements, and the link between the accessibility requirements, the legal requirements, and the technical specifications is that they usually say that if you fulfill this standard, then you fulfill the law. And then there's the actual accessibility. If you follow the legal requirements, then you hope that you will get an accessible result. What is accessibility? In the EN standard, it says it is products, system services, etc., that can be used by people from a population with the widest range of user needs, including persons with disabilities. And the EAA has even a very similar, but maybe a broader approach. It says that accessibility means maximizing the foreseeable use of a document, of a PDF in this case, by persons with disabilities. So maximizing the foreseeable use by persons with disabilities, meaning that we want persons with disabilities to have the same access, the same possibilities to handle the document as persons without disabilities. So we have the EAA, which has the legal requirements for accessibility, as I mentioned. and my colleague Stefan will share in the chat a link to the EAA and specifically to Annex 1 of the EAA. And if you read in that a bit, you'll see that these are very generic requirements but for different aspects that ensure that persons with different user needs, persons who cannot see, persons who have low vision, without hearing or with limited hearing, that they all have the possibility to access services, products, websites, documents. Then we have the EN 301549 European standard, which is the technical standard for digital accessibility. That again is a bit broader aspect and then compared to the PDF UA, which is providing technical requirements for PDF documents. The EN 301549 is a harmonized standard for the European Accessibility Act. Just a side note that what is or will be a harmonized standard to the European Accessibility Act, what is officially published now is not the version that will be the harmonized standard. It is being updated, or actually the final text is ready. It is being approved these days, hopefully, and then soon it will come out and you will have a newer text. The main message of today is that an accessible PDF is not simply a PDF document that passes a validator. It's not enough that if you run an accessibility Adobe Accessibility Checker on your PDF or even the PAC checker, that it is shiny and there's no errors at all. Unfortunately, it doesn't mean that it is necessarily accessible. It means that certain technical requirements are fulfilled. So your aim is to have a PDF that meets the applicable requirements, but actually allows people with disabilities to read and use the content. And we'll see that just passing a validator might not provide that. So the 3 layers, as I mentioned, but from a different aspect, I'm building it from down to top. There's the technical PDF requirements. For that, we have the PDF UA standard, and it is primarily a format-specific standard which answers the questions or helps with, is the PDF constructed in a way that enables accessible use? So it's enabling accessible use. It doesn't mean that the PDF is actually accessible. Meanwhile, the next level, the accessibility requirements in the European standard, for example, answers or helps with, does the content comply with the accessibility requirements? So just fulfilling the PDF UA rules doesn't mean that you actually comply with the rigor requirements. And finally, and that is our aim, if we are not just trying to get away with the law, we don't just try to be compliant in a strict legal sense, but we actually want an actual accessible user experience, then we have to get up to that level, and we'll see some examples. What does that mean, or where's the difference? So here is an example. The same document in different versions. The first one, it looks good. It's a PDF document, but on the left side, you can see that there's no tags at all. It means that there's no markup behind the document. Assistive technology does not know how to, maybe it reads out the text, but the user will lose a lot of contextual meaning, like if something is a header, or if something is a list element, if something is in a table, etc. So let's say that we have a completely perfectly tagged PDF document. On the left side, you can see that you have a tag tree, and the PAC checker actually shows that all the PDF UA requirements are fulfilled. But it shows that WCAG, which the same checker has this function that shows whether WCAG is fulfilled. It shows that there's a problem, and we can see if we come here that actually, even if it's technically perfectly tagged, this document has a very low contrast text. So people with visual impairments or people with certain cognitive impairments, they won't be able to handle this document. So, and that is one main difference between just referring or using the PDF UA requirement, which ensures that assistive technology can handle a document, and actually going beyond that and making sure that the document is fully accessible. But here is another example where actually the document is perfectly tagged and the contrast ratio is also good. So this document would fulfill the requirements in both the EN standard and PDF UA, but actually this uses small text, italics, and a very thin font type. So that's where I want to get to the level of user experience. This document is actually not accessible. This would pass the testers. This would even maybe pass the legal requirements, but it is not accessible. So the idea is that first people are able to read and handle the document. This is the level where we have to pay attention and be aware that it is not enough only to pass those tests. We have to make sure that something is accessible. In this case, that's why I chose this example. It's you can see that it's very difficult to read, so you have to turn up a bit the volume and make sure that you have bigger font size and you have better, darker color. So so these are the 3 levels of accessibility basically for PDF, and I would like to highlight some differences between the PDF UA standard and the WCAG, the European standard, which refers in many cases to WCAG. PDF UA standard is focusing on technical accessibility, and it does or very minimally handles questions of content and design, whether, for example, a good font size is used, or whether the good content type is used, whether you have a diagram that helps understanding a difficult process written in text, etc. That's not what PDF UA handles. Also, as you saw, it doesn't focus on contrast. It doesn't focus on using color only to convey meaning, but it will definitely be a fail for the EN standard. And if you have a properly marked up link text, but actually the content is just click here, then it would pass the PDF UA standard, but not the legal requirements for accessibility. And similarly, if you have a good heading structure, but the headings are not meaningful, then again, PDF UA is okay with that because it focuses on the technical accessibility for assistive technology, but it won't pass the legal requirements. Maybe a bit even more interesting is when PDF UA flags an error or a problem, but it might not be a problem at all, or, well, I would say it might not create an accessibility problem based on the European standard, or actually it is not creating a real problem for the users. And I'll show you 4 examples for that. Skipping heading levels is forbidden based on in PDF UA, but it is not forbidden in the European standard. And of course, it's better if you follow the heading levels, like after heading 2, you get to heading 3 and you don't jump to heading 4. But actually, in a very simple document, if you jump from heading 2 to heading level 4, the users can understand it. So this is something that, yes, you should follow, but you should know that actually this is not something that would violate the legal requirements. Then there's an even more interesting example, which we were discussing lately among ourselves, is there's an alternative description for links. This is a requirement in PDF UA. So if you have a link, you have to provide, like an alt text for an image, you have to provide an alternative description, which actually can cause even problems. Because if this alternative description is different from what is visible on the screen, then you have basically two labels for the same things. Maybe for screen reader users, this alternative description would solve a problem when the link text is click here, and this alternative description explains what is the destination of that link. Good for screen reader users, but not good for example, users of an eye tracking technology, or users who actually use speech command, because they will hear that the alternative name of the link, but actually the command would work based on what is on the screen. Then if you're missing a unique note ID for footnotes, for example, it is an error under PDF UA, but actually it has no real accessibility implications. So if it is okay to have this error in your pack checker, on the other hand, it is also understandable if people want to fix it. If you work with a client, you want to have a squeaky clean pack result sheet. So that is actually a problem because of that, because then you need to fix it if you want a perfect validation result, but actually it has no accessibility implications. And the last one I would like to mention is also a PDF UA identifier saying that the document fulfills the PDF UA requirements is required under the PDF UA standard, but it is actually not necessary for the user, or not really relevant. So what are our recommendations? Be aware that PDF UA has a technological orientation. It is useful. I mean, you need to follow the tagging rules and all that to make sure that that your PDF document is tagged in a way that assistive technology can understand and present well, but that is not enough. There are other layers beyond that. You need to know that standards do not cover all user needs. Even the EN standard is lacking requirements, so to say, that would be help accessibility for users with cognitive disabilities. For example, left aligning the text is not a requirement, but we know that justified text is can be very difficult to read. For example, for people with dyslexia. Then aim for a simple, understandable design. Again, this is in no standards at all, but if you create a very complex list or a very complex table, or there are things all around your document, even if you set the right reading order, if visually it's confusing or overwhelming, that doesn't provide the good accessible experience. And use a whole process approach. So from the beginning to the end, pay attention to accessibility. When you work with PDF, make sure that your source document is already accessible. And so you have to change the list in the PDF document. It makes it more accessible, and to think through the structure of the document from the beginning also ensures that you have a document with an understandable and accessible structure. And finally, train the content creators, train people on accessibility. And here's a bit of advertisement. We offer trainings for documents. So if you need help with that, just contact us or go to our webpage. And we have training, or we will soon have published trainings for Word and PDF and other formats as well. And yes, this is the final one actually. Consider HTML instead of PDF. HTML is a much more flexible and accessible format. So if it's possible, don't use PDF, use HTML. That is our message, a set of messages for the end of the summer. Let's see if you have any questions or any comments on that. I cannot see.
We gotten loads of questions.
Oh, okay,
one was about the barking dog, but we can't hear any barking dogs. All microphones are muted. So even if I would like to hear the barking dog. So we have one question. If the PDF UA is not harmonized standard for the EA, do I even need to even have to use it?
yes, it's highly recommended that you use it. It's true, it's not a harmonized standard. So, for example, if you work in a bank, then the authorities won't check your PDFs against the PDF UA standard, but that the PDF UA definitely provides rules, tagging rules, and other rules that makes sure that you actually fulfill the EN standard. So it's like the technical part of it. The EN standard is very generic, or very not generic, technology neutral, and yes, as well, it's general in its approach. PDF UA does translate those requirements. So yes, it's very much recommended.
How much manual and assistive technology testing is enough to call a PDF accessible?
Yeah, that's a
Very
very
interesting.
good question, which is a bit difficult to answer. So you definitely need manual checking because there are contextual parts of or aspects of a document which cannot be checked by any automated checker. An automated checker can check if the headings are there, if the heading structure is good. It cannot check whether the heading text is actually presenting what is in that chapter. The same is true for a reading order. You can only check the reading order manually, actually, if it is really meaningful. And then, yes, contrast you can check, but the contrast checkers also have a certain errors which might not consider a background that's put in a different layer behind the text. So you need to check at least these three things, and also the fourth is, I would say, at least to see if you don't use color as the only way to convey a meaning. So you don't say that please go to the green text or press the red button, because people who cannot see colors well won't be able to use that instruction. As for how much testing with assistive technology, well, the recommendation is that at least you just scroll through with a screen reader, with any screen reader, to see if in general there are huge problems. But the problem with that is that I am, for example, not a professional assistive technology user. I know how it works. I know how to use it, but I'm not using it at a daily basis. So it is always necessary in a big scale, at least to include persons, users with disabilities, and users who can tell you whether your document is actually accessible.
I think we have an interesting question here. What are your thoughts on Excel if you export an Excel to PDF accessibility?
Oh, that's a good question. It's rarely possible. First of all, I would say that use each format for what it is intended for. If you have a huge database, then use Excel definitely. That you won't really be able to export to PDF. I personally, I don't think I'm exporting Excel to PDF. I think if you use the right settings, so if you set up the Excel properly using the table format, everything, it should be in general okay.
Yeah,
But
you remember we tested this before the summer, actually, you
yeah,
and me, Peter. And I think our result was that if you want to share a table, it's better to take the table, make it accessible in Word, and then turn the Word file into a PDF.
yeah, okay.
Because there's a lot of work to be done inside the PDF if you export directly from Excel, if I remember our summary of our
Yes,
testing.
because if it's a simple table, you don't really need Excel, so you should do it. But when you get to use Excel, basically that would be complex, and that would have features that needs manual fixing. A PDF, you can. So the advantage of PDF, you can have a complex table. You can set it up manually. You can have various table headers. You can have merge cells, split cells. You can do all that, but you have to fix it manually, and that takes time. So use a simpler approach, and then yes, if you already have a simpler table, use a PDF. Use a Word. Sorry.
I got a question. You talked about not accessible stuff, but not accessible by what official definition? So when you were talking about text that was small, and you said something about this is not accessible, but according to which official definition is the question?
Well, that's where it gets interesting, the approach of the European Accessibility Act and how standards
Oh,
are used. For
short
example,
answer, because I saw the time is running away
oh,
from us, Peter. I'm
okay.
sorry.
A quick answer?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, yes, it's not an official requirement. Again, or it's not in the standards. If you fulfill the standards, you are deemed to fulfill the law. But actually, the EAA requires that the text should be perceivable. So it has a general approach. It would mean that actually legally you don't fulfill directly the EAA. You fulfill through the standards, but still, if even the EAA accessibility definition would include that the text is in a correct font size that is readable. But that's a shortcut. Yes, if you use the standard, then you basically fulfill the law, or you are deemed to fulfill the law. At this point where we are in the history of accessibility, or the practice of accessibility, let's fulfill the standards and pay attention whatever more we can. But I am so you should test your documents with users and see if that's not working. Then you should make it more accessible. That's basically the end goal. Yep. So we have no more time for questions.
No, can you jump to the
Yes, sorry.
QR code
Here you go.
slides?
And I give it
Yeah.
back to Malin.
So please subscribe to our newsletters. When we do new trainings, we do new research or anything interesting, we put it in our newsletter. So don't miss that. All our events also show up in there. And follow us on LinkedIn, because we do loads of posts on WhatsApp at the company on LinkedIn as well. And then I've created some slides. I hope I can share them quickly. See. This is working like it usually is when I do things. So share.
I stop sharing just in case.
Okay. So me and Peter are on the workshop team on IAAP and European Disability Forum joint event. It's an online event celebrating the Web Accessibility Directive's 6th anniversary and the European Accessibility Act. So it's a Web Accessibility Directive plus EAA equals true. On the 22nd of September, we have an online workshop where we will be deep diving nerdly. Yeah.
Sorry, can you make it full screen, because maybe it's too small for some.
It's not full screen?
No, we have the maybe.
Oh, sorry. Change displays. Swap displays. Oh, better.
Perfect.
Sorry. And I hope Stefan on the fly can add the registration link for this event. So we will nerd down into the EN 31549 requirements and the new version of the EN 31549 that is in their final kind of stage. On the 23rd of September, there's a full day of and online event with loads of excellent speakers. So do not miss this. It's free, and Stefan will add a registration link in the chat. And then we have an exciting event from IAAP Nordic where I will join, and we are doing it as a hybrid event. If you haven't been to Iceland, and try to kind of get there because it looks really cool. I haven't, so I'm very excited to get there. We will talk about how successful implementation of the new legislation, so the Web Accessibility Directive, because we don't think we should forget that public service should be accessible. A practical demo by end users with disabilities. This is a really great thing we have done a lot of time, so I recommend getting there to chat with the actual user. And rule-based training. So if you're a UX designer or developer, what can you do? We have excellent keynote speakers, one from European Parliament and Lainey Fingold. So this will be an exciting event. I think Stefan will add the link to this one as well. And our next Friday webinar will be announced shortly. We haven't quite decided on the topic, so feel free to give us tips. So stay tuned for details and subscribe to our newsletter. You will make sure you will get when the next Friday webinar is up and ready to register for. And with that, I'm so happy to have you here this Friday, and I hope you will have an excellent weekend. And thank you, Peter, for your nice presentation.
Thank you for joining us. Have a nice weekend.